One of the earliest lessons I had in shifting perspective came from a simple childhood memory. Like so many kids, I'd sometimes sit at the dinner table, too full to finish my meal, and my parents wouldn't let me leave the table without the reminder, do you know how many kids would love to have that food right now? It was a simple prompt to appreciate what I had, but as I grew older, I came to see it as something far deeper. This small shift in perspective, just momentarily placing myself in someone else's reality, planted a lasting lesson throughout my life. That lesson took on an even greater meaning when my mother returned from a trip to Nigeria and shared a story that truly changed how I viewed my life. She had met a young boy who lived in a small village. He was only 7, just a kid, and yet his life was already shaped by loss and responsibility. Both his parents had passed away, and he was being raised by his grandmother, a woman who barely had enough to provide for just the two of them. In this village, attending school comes with one singular condition. Students must bring certain supplies like chalk or paper towels. His requirement to attend school was to bring a broom. Yet that simple request was more than his grandmother could afford. A broom. That was all that stood between him and his education. When my mother explained that in Canadian dollars, that broom cost about $1, I felt something shift inside me. I was shocked. It wasn't just the boy's situation. It was the realization that something so insignificant in my world could mean everything in his. My mother didn't just send him a broom. She sent his entire school supplies like books, pencils, and all the basics every kid needed. But for this boy, she went even further. She sent him brand new clothes, shoes, soap, a toothbrush, and even a few toys. When I watched the video of his reaction, his joy was like nothing I'd ever seen. The moment he opened the box, his entire face lit up, his eyes went wide, his smile stretched from ear to ear, and he let out this laugh, the kind that comes straight from the heart. He held up each item like it was treasure, spinning around to show his grandmother and all his friends watching him. It wasn't just happiness. It was pure, unfiltered gratitude. Gratitude in its truest form. Hearing the story only strengthened my belief that I should be incredibly grateful for what I have in my life. It felt like undeniable proof that true gratitude came from recognizing what others didn't have, and that by comparing my life to theirs, I could see how fortunate I was. It made perfect sense to me at the time. I thought that by measuring my blessings against the hardships of others, I would always have reason to be thankful. I was so moved that I told my mom that for Christmas, I didn't want any presents. Instead, I wanted her to take whatever money she would have spent on me and use it to help more kids like that young boy in the same village. At that moment, I truly thought it couldn't get more grateful than this. I was so proud of myself for this refreshing way of thinking and living my life, and so I continued practicing gratitude in this way. I catch myself thinking, how could I be upset on my mark on this test? Some people don't have the chance to study. Or, how could I be frustrated about my performance in a soccer game? Some people don't even have the ability to play. The more I felt like this, the more grounded I felt. It made perfect sense. If I kept reminding myself that those who had less, I would always stay appreciative of what I have. Christmas morning arrived. Every year, all my cousins and I had gathered in the living room, excitedly waiting to open our presents. I sat and watched as everyone excitedly tore open their gifts. Wrapping paper flew everywhere, laughter filled the room, and joy was all around. Yet I sat there, feeling disappointed and empty-handed. When I had made my decision weeks earlier, it had felt empowering, like I was doing something meaningful, something that truly mattered. But sitting there, with nothing to unwrap, I felt something I hadn't expected. I felt hollow. And with that emptiness came questions I wasn't ready to answer. Why did my gratitude fade so quickly? Shouldn't it have lasted? Shouldn't I have felt fulfilled? That's when I started questioning everything I thought I knew about gratitude. Was gratitude supposed to be a one-time event? Was it something I could earn? Or was it something I had to constantly work at? I began to realize that my gratitude was often tied to comparison, to the presence of an external contrast that made me feel more fortunate. If I was constantly reminding myself that things could be worse, well then what was stopping me from also thinking that things could be better? That mindset, the constant comparison of my situation against other struggles, did help me appreciate what I had, but it also can be stuck in a cycle of comparison. How can we be grateful when we find ourselves constantly measuring our worth against external standards? Recently, I looked at the actual definition of gratitude, and to my surprise, comparison wasn't part of it at all. I began to rethink what gratitude really meant when I remembered the boy in Nigeria and the look on his face as he received his gifts. For a moment, I wondered, did his gratitude come simply from the fact that his friends and classmates might not have received the same gifts he did? Or was it rooted in something else? Now, I want you all to picture something with me. Picture two teenage boys living completely different lives. Take a moment to think about them, not just their situations, but how they approach life and how they each define what it means to be content. This is Chloe. Chloe is a grade 12 student here in Ontario whose life often looks like a stereotypical perfect life. She grew up in a loving home with two parents who always made sure she had everything she needed. Chloe's friends adore her, and she's always had a solid group around her to support her in every endeavor. Chloe works incredibly hard in school, earning straight A's, participating in extracurricular activities, and making sure her college applications are all in order. She has everything a teenager could want: love, security, and opportunities. Chloe is also a dedicated dancer, spending hours each week perfecting her technique and routines. Recently, Chloe's dance coach announced that Chloe would be a part of a trio with two of her closest friends, and for a moment, she felt pure excitement. She worked so hard for this, and it felt like a recognition of all her efforts. But when she realized Emma, her best friend, would also be in the trio, after Emma had already been given a sparked a sense of unease. Chloe hated feeling jealous, especially toward Emma, but the comparison was hard to shake, and she couldn't help but wonder if she was falling behind or if her own accomplishments were being overlooked. By the end of the week, Chloe's excitement was overshadowed by insecurity and comparison, and the achievement that should have felt like a triumph seemed less meaningful. Then, Chloe got the acceptance letter to her dream school. At first, she felt a wave of relief, thinking that this would finally give her the satisfaction she had been seeking for. But soon after, the feeling faded. Despite achieving what she thought would bring her sense of accomplishment, she felt empty. It was as if the joy of reaching this milestone was quickly overshadowed by the nagging feeling that something was missing. She found herself questioning, why can't I just be happy with this? Why does it feel like it's still not enough? This is Amara. Amara is also a grade 12 student who lives in Nigeria. Her mom sells rice at the local market, and her dad works as a security guard at the nearby office building, a job that doesn't pay much, but allows him to bring home books for Amara to read. Amara has 3 younger siblings, and with her parents usually being very busy with work, she's often in charge of taking care of them, doing household chores, helping them with their schoolwork, all while sort of trying to keep up with her own. Despite these challenges, Amara still stays determined to pursue her dreams of becoming a lawyer. She's always been fascinated by the justice system, and she wants to use her voice to make a difference in her community. But her family's financial situation makes it hard for her to see how this dream will ever come true. Still, she doesn't let this obstacle define her. Amara loves to read. Every after school, she looks forward to diving into a new book her dad brought home for her. On weekends, Amara is in charge of running her family's small shop. Though they don't make much money, Amara finds joy in the simple moments, like talking to the customers, hearing the stories of people passing by, and seeing her friends who sometimes visit the market. Even though Amara sometimes feels overwhelmed with the pressures of being the oldest sibling, she looks at each day as an opportunity to grow stronger and more resilient. And she finds joys in simple moments and embraces each day with gratitude for the opportunity it brings. Calvin's story echoed the same truth. You might think Amara is just a character I've created, but she's not. Amara is a real girl living in Nigeria with her family, facing daily struggles with resilience and hope. On the other hand, Chloe's struggles reflect what many people face, constantly comparing themselves to others and feeling unfulfilled even when they have so much. Chloe's mindset, constantly comparing herself to others, serves as a real-life example of how this mindset can hinder our emotional well-being. Theodore Roosevelt once said, "Comparison is a thief of joy." It's important to acknowledge that comparison doesn't just rob us of joy when we measure ourselves against others. It also takes away our ability to fully appreciate the life we have. Now, I'm not saying that when you see a video on social media of someone less fortunate, you should just scroll past it, or worse, report it for ruining your vibe. These videos can certainly inspire us, prompting us to reflect on what we have and feel thankful in the moment. However, the key difference is this: feeling inspired is temporary, while true gratitude is deeper and more sustained. If our sense of appreciation only comes from these moments of comparison, then we're simply reacting to what we see, not truly appreciating the life we have. If our sense of appreciation only comes from these small moments of comparison on social media, then what happens when we scroll past it? What happens when the video ends? Gratitude should be something we cultivate for ourselves, something we carry with us. But too often, we get caught up in everyone's filtered lives, scrolling through a million lives we'll never live, while the one life that's ours slips right through our fingers. There are more than 1 billion people on this earth, and not one person wakes up in the morning and lives the exact same day as another. This uniqueness in itself is a gift. True gratitude is the realization that we get to live a day that is entirely our own. It's about embracing our journey with all its ups and downs without looking outwards at others. Oprah Winfrey is a powerful example of someone who believes in this. Having risen from humble beginnings to becoming one of the wealthiest women in the world, Oprah consistently talks about the importance of gratitude and inner fulfillment. She has said, "Be thankful for what you have, you'll end up having more. If you concentrate on what you don't have, you'll never have enough." This reflects her deep belief that true gratitude comes from appreciating what you already have and all the abundance in your life. If you had asked me, what does gratitude mean to you, a few years ago, I would have given you a straightforward answer, one that I truly believed in at the time. Gratitude to me was about realizing that I had more than others and appreciating my life because of that contrast. It seemed simple, logical even. But now, when I hear stories like the one of the young boy or Amara's, I don't feel grateful simply because of the difference in our circumstances. Instead, I'm inspired by their outlook on life, their resilience, and their ability to find joy and purpose despite their circumstances. I've realized that gratitude isn't just something that should come when we realize that we have more than others. And it certainly isn't a transaction, something that comes when we realize that someone has less than what we do. Instead, gratitude is about presence. It's about understanding the lens through which you view the world and redefining what gratitude means to you. It's about acknowledging the good in your life because it is good, not because someone else has it worse. It's about recognizing that every moment, every challenge, and every experience has value on its own without needing to be compared to anything else. And most importantly, gratitude isn't usually something that just happens. It's something that needs to be practiced, something that we need to cultivate for ourselves. One of my favorite songs is Love Yours by J. Cole. In the song, he says, "There's always going to be a whip that's better than the one you got. Always going to be some clothes that are fresher than the ones you rock. But you'll never be happy till you love yours." This is then followed by the chorus, "No such thing as a life that's better than yours." To me, these lyrics remind us that a lot of times it is hard not to compare life to others, but that true happiness comes from recognizing what we already have. Now, sometimes that's hard to see, but one of my favorite sayings in the Bible is, "As long as you have breath, you have hope." And to me, that's the foundation of gratitude. As long as we are here, we have the opportunity to find meaning, to create joy, and to enjoy the simple fact that we exist. So, I leave you with this. Take a moment to look at your life, not through the lens of comparison, but through your own. See what is there, appreciate it for what it is, and not for what it isn't. Because true gratitude is found by looking within. And by doing that, you'll see that joy isn't something you have to chase. It's something that's already there, waiting for you to notice it. Thank you.